Hi, how you doing? It's a girl, Elizabeth Adeloshidi. I just would like to remind you to stay brutally honest to your better selves. I said that clause better because I hear a lot of people say, this is the way I am. You defend your bad selves. We all need to re-examine our lives once you hear that complaint from one person, 2 people, 3 people, on how not so humane and godly you are. It's called checkmate. We must be able to check ourselves. We must be able to re-examine ourselves. I don't stand guarantee for anybody, and I cannot attest to anything before I come back to tell you this is the way that person is. I go back to recheck. A lot of you are not realizing that Ojalaye, this world is a marketplace. We come to buy and sell. And sometimes we don't even realize how terrible we have gotten, perhaps out of being broke, or out of desperation, out of anger. One thing I will always do is to retest my temperature. I am working on a strike right now. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The greatest problem I have on the job are not the Americans. They're not the Spanish, the Italians, it is always the Nigerians. I got on the elevator with one yesterday. And she said, oh, you're not working today? I said, I'm working. And then she goes, with my badge. And then she goes, oh, you're done, you're going home? I said, no, I'm going to work. Oh, and she said, I said, what is the problem with you? My 12 hours of work is part of the 24 hours of life. I'm not going to outside the work that gives me money, dress like I'm going to see the king, and then when it's time for work, I project myself the wrong way. I am who I am. 24 hours living my life because I don't know when it says I'm going to die. People that are younger than me die, that are older die. I buried a son. So please, I beg, forgive me if my confidence in life and how sure it is not even up to par with yours. And it has nothing to do with my belief to God, my prayers and my faith. But the realities of my life are not the same thing as yours. So every time I leave this house, I take the pain to look like I'm a human being. Like I said yesterday, if I advise you to start small and start selling Indomie or something that is $3, $4, it's not because I believe or I'm delusioned to be fooled into thinking that market you're selling will be what will make you rich, but because I trust God. I know, I understand his heart and the way he works. Where we walk honestly and truthfully, it will send kind and good and great people to us, who unknowing to us would have been watching us from afar on how delicate we are. I've seen too many things in my life to be pretentious. I don't block bullshit, package it in a good way. I tell you the way it is. As nice as I am, one thing I don't compromise is the truth. Ask my whole family. I walked last week with a Nigerian man from Akwa Ibom, a Calabar man. As soon as I said hi, I knew I had a problem. It looked like he just crawled out of the bush. Even though it might have been in America, God knows how long. I have problems with the males that are Nigerian. As soon as they see me, they begin to hate because they either equal me to their wives at home that are not seemingly respectful enough, or they know that if their type would say hi to me, I could never end up in bed with them. I speak reality, I speak truth, and I speak life. I know the aura around me. I know people's perception when they see me. I'm like a rock star nurse. That is my style. Every day of my life. Now, I worked with this guy. That patient had been a DNI. Do not resuscitate, do not intubate. She had cancer. She has cancer. Bad cancer. Endometriosis. I sympathized with her and translated into empathizing with her because I had fibroids for 4, 5, 6 years there. And for a family friend that would oftentimes recommend ketorolac that I gave myself shot for over 3 years. Only God saved me. Ọlọ́run ló gbà mí tí mi ò ní kidney problems. Everybody, my sister, my mother, my son, the one dead, the one living, my close friends now. It almost ruined me. Fibroids, for some people, is a joke. For me, it almost ended my life. I've had 4 major surgeries with fibroids. The last one I had, because in America, they just pick up with tools. I had to call Dr. Adekunle Adigun at New Wave Clinic in Nigeria, close to 7 Up. Mo kúrò l'America, mo ra ticket, mo lọ ṣe surgery nílé. That was when I became free of fibroids. Mo lè ṣe l'America. So there are good points about being Nigerian. And I always tell you, it's not a tall, high-rise, classy building or school that gives your children the best of life. It is the people that are there taking the pains to see you, hear your pains, see your children, and take the time to recruit resources to empower themselves, to empower your children. Favor! God's favor. Now, this patient had been DNR for months. Cancer everywhere, metastasized everywhere. And just before the change of shift, they changed our status from DNI to full code. If I was the nurse, if I were the one on duty, I would have told the doctor to escalate a regimen of treatment. Because she was dying, there were certain intensive, progressive, diagnostic interventions that should have been, that would have been just excused because they were trying to give her the dignity she needed to just pass peacefully. Now, the first question I asked was, with the family, did they tell you that when we do compressions, we could break her ribs? Because she was that emaciated. They said they discussed with them, they still wanted her to be full code. But they wouldn't let her get chemotherapy. They wouldn't let her get radiation. They wouldn't let her use narcotics. It was just Tylenol IV. And they said, oh, would you give the Tylenol 1 hour before? I said no. Tylenol and narcotics are not what I could give 1 hour before. With antibiotics, I could, but not with Tylenol. I've been a nurse for 21 years. Actually, for going on 23 years, 1996, I came here, I went from CNA to LVN to RN. I became an RN in 2002, so calculate that. This is 2006. I said, no, I'm sorry. I couldn't do that. And immediately, that family just hated me. I could feel the vibes oozing from that spiritual realm. So I employed myself to be extra humble, extra kind, extra attentive. And for the first 4 hours of the shift, I couldn't attend to my other 2 patients. I just concentrated on them. And when she went to report me to the charge nurse, a Calabar boy, Calabar man, excuse me, that, oh, I didn't want to do what the others did, give the Tylenol ahead. And as soon as he stepped into the room and saw their mother, and how emaciated she was, he said, this patient can't be here. This patient has to go to ICU. We have to move this patient. So we called the house doctor. And that patient was moved, got to ICU, happened to check the blood sugar, because now the patient had an all-inclusive escalated regimen of treatment. The blood sugar was 26. It's not compatible with life. So they gave the day 50, and it came back to tell me, oh, if you were a critical care nurse, you should have. I said, physiologically, there was no changes. Mentally, I didn't notice anything. The children didn't say my mother was awake, now she's drowsy. If you saw her in a dilapidated state. What I'm trying to say is, just because you hear me speak your language, your tongue, doesn't mean that I care about you. There are a lot of wicked people that are Nigerians. A lot of them. I always have problems with our men, because I'm not their women that they can stamp on, use their muscles on, and please, as I speak, recognize the fact that I didn't have girls. My children were boys. Yeah, my boys, name. But the inferiority complexes that these men walk around with is humongous. And why am I talking like this? Because as mothers who want your children to have a resting place, a good place, a marriage, you must learn to give our daughters patience, because a lot of our men have inferiority complexes. What they call confidence is abusive. How they come across is abrasive. You need to understand where they're coming from. We come from a society that has fed them wrong. They can hold their own in a local champion stage in Nigeria, but when it comes to the world stage, they can't. A lot of them don't have what it takes to respect people, mutual understanding. They don't have that. They like to back out others and not work on their lives and not improve their thoughts and not learn to respect women. Teach your sons. Teach them. Stop feeding them and blowing up their egos for nothing. You will destroy their lives. The only place where the arrogance and the disrespect and manipulation works is in the African system. Once they step out of Nigeria, they will have to learn to see other people as humans, to note that the other women they meet on the street in life are not their wives, and that women are not secondary, inferior to men. In order for our children to keep their homes, you have to be a woman that understands the way life works, not just understanding women or men. It's a tough world. The security system, safety measures, everything in life has changed. If you truly love people, you will learn to tell them the truth. You will not buff their egos. And that's why I come here every day to tell you the truth and to let you know what the temperature out there is saying. Just in Los Angeles alone, look at the cars. Look at these people. I don't know any of them. And it goes for miles and miles and miles in every city, every country, every state. You see that? I can't go into any of these places, any of these homes, any of these companies. They don't know me there. You that know one another and those that I know are the ones that God has kept as helpers one for another. Just a little kindness. Just letting people rant and finding the time to go to them to tell them the truth. If you are the type that gets easily upset, you're a bully. You don't like the truth. You back around like a dog. You're evil, you're wicked. Let people be able to approach you so that you will not die young, die in vain, or die bitter. The world is a marketplace. We need to take the right currency with us. That is kindness, humility, and the heart of godliness. I too like mansions. I'm staying at the Hotel Indigo. The pay I'm on the 15th floor, for goodness sake. I'm living what some will call the life, but this doesn't mean anything to me. To me, this is cold. This is lonely. I don't want this. I'd rather be amongst people where we can run around and play. Nobody can walk life alone. The bottom line is that TMO. Recognize your own. But stay true, stay kind. Where God came in through, that I'm so full of testimony today. Unknowing to that Calabar boy, that ugly, short-looking idiot nurse that's been there for 11 years working to Fefite Batemije, the manager of that unit, I had precepted over 15 years ago at one hospital here in California where I lived. So God had gone ahead to sit for me. She didn't even look at it twice, but I didn't take that for granted. Immediately, defense, I didn't see any physiological change. I didn't see any neurological change. There was no psychological shift. I don't just go around doing blood sugar. She never got D10, never had glucose regimen. She never was a blood sugar, no history of diabetes. What would give me the notion when I was actually carried away trying to stabilize hemodynamically? Blood pressure was in the low 80s. Saturation was deep into the 90s, even though on the highest flow of the high flow oxygenation of 60%, she still needed a non-rebreather. That wasn't a regular floor patient. That was an ICU patient. Do your best at all times. Don't lose guard because you're working with Nigerians. 98% of Nigerians will bury you as a Nigerian. That is why our country is the way it is. Because a lot of people truly, they may start off with kindness and end up with inferiority complex. They don't understand why you still look the way you look even though you're not making as much as they are. You understand? There are lots of people that are richer than me, but I'm contented. And I thank God because many died this morning, didn't wake up. Many will die tonight, won't wake up. Gratitude. The gratitude in your heart will always separate you from your friends, your family, your children, your husband. Don't let them change you. If the whole of California goes into the grounds today, there is absolutely nothing anybody can do. I just closed my son's murder case on December 1st, 2025. There are lots of women like me who buried their children who are in psychiatric units, on psychiatric units, tied down, lost their minds because they forgot to remember God. They forgot to use gratitude to sweep away the sorrows as they lay by the rivers of Babylon. Praising the Lord always. Praising the Lord always. Praising the Lord with all my heart. Praising the Lord with all my heart always. The Lord is good. It took me several years to say that again. When I buried my son, it took me several years. Whoo! Whoo! Your girl, Elizabeth Adiola Shudi, Ariel. No excuse will do before God for the things we decide to use as backup plans that have no kindness, no godliness in them. No excuse. Your girl, I love you. Ariel. Bye for now.